We can start, I think. I just downloaded Unreal Engine 5.4 and I am not able to log in actually with the internet connection because Epic Games crashes. But when you sign it on the Epic Games launcher, you can easily download it, the engine. So I will just using this one. So I am not able to show you how to download it, but it's just pretty basic, so you can download it easily. So when I opened the Unreal Engine, the first screen that you can see is for the projects. Here you can see the projects that is located on my local hard disk. You can select them to continue, or you can create new projects on these categories. So I will just go with the basic blank project, and let's call it like this. There are some settings at here, as you can see, Blueprint or C++, and the target platforms like mobile or desktop, quality presets, starter content, and ray tracing. Ray tracing is, I am not suggesting you to enable it because it uses for the games. Yes, we can use it on the virtual studios if our hardware supports RTX. Yes, but we already have Lumen, so it already has built-in ray tracing. Also, there is a starter content that can provide you some assets like textures, models, and materials. So I am not going to select C++, and most of the time for the virtual studios, we are not using the C++. We can create it as blueprints, but when needed, we can convert it to the C++. So I will just create my project, and it creates a splash screen. After the loading, we will see the editor overview. So today we will talk about editor overview, camera controls, project settings, asset management, the materials, lighting, and a little bit post effects. So let's make a introduction for the editor overview. So the screen that you have seen in here called viewport. So we can have all the camera controls in the viewport when we press on the right mouse button, and we can rotate the camera, and we can give some inputs like default game inputs, let's think, WASD. We can move the camera, and we can rotate this camera with right mouse button. And also we have some other keys like E to raise the camera and Q for the decreasing the height of the camera. So we can easily go and just find the places, find the navigation with this keyboard inputs. After that, we have some file in here, edit window, default software actions in here. We can create new levels, or we can open the existing levels on file menu. So Unreal Engine can have multiple projects, and each project can have multiple levels. So in our situation, we can have one project, and in this one project, we can have multiple virtual studios. It's just a game logic, actually. We can switch the levels. We can, for example, let's think a game's default level. When we open a project, when we open a game, for example, the first level we will see is going to be probably a main menu. So it doesn't have to include any 3D objects. We can just print some UMG Unreal Motion graphics to give main menu controls. And for example, let's say we just pressed a button for the new game. So it will create another, it will open another level for us that we have created. So I am just going to select the new level in here. Also, we have the save as, etc., or import or export settings in here. And we have new project, open project, and zip project settings. So new project and open project is much more related with the first screen that we saw on the Epic Games Launcher. And we can export the existing scene as FBX or OBJ or whatever you can call it. So we can export this scene into another 3D modeling software. So I am going to create a new level, and open world and empty open world is some levels that has some enabled features like word partition, which can be selected at the windows in here. So there's a word partition for the open world maps. It's designed for the open world maps. As we are creating some, we will be responsible for creating virtual studios. So we are not going to use word partition because word partition is much more aimed for open world games. So we will go with the basic one, and we can directly save it on save current level into our content. I just created a new folder on my content browser called maps, and I will save it as map01. So when I disabled the project, probably I will see the open world level that we have saw it before, and we just need to find this level on our content browser, or we can directly select it into the here to open the map. Also, we have some controls at here, like selection mode. So with the selection mode, we are able to select the 3D models or the assets in the scene, and we can manipulate them, such as their location, their rotation, or their scale. When I selected a 3D object, you can see there is a pivot point. So I can change the location, or on a single axis, or multiple axes, like here. We can switch the selection mode to rotating, and the shortcut is called A. So WAR will be responsible for the changing the selection mode. So we can translate it, we can transform it, we can rotate it on the certain axes, and we can scale them. So when we are moving an object, we have a grid point, grid snapping in here. We can, for example, set the grid size to 100, and we will see that it will add 100 and 100 for the X transform. Let's check it. For example, in here, as you can see, and it's just increasing or decreasing according to our grid size. If you don't want to use grid, we can disable it, and we can freely change the location. And it same goes for the rotation, for the decrease and the scale snap. And also we have a transform gizmo coordinate. We can switch into world and local according to the objective's rotation or location. For example, let me rotate it. So when I rotated it, it goes with like it goes like the mesh's rotation. We can see that pivot is object is world rotation. But when we switch it, as you can see, it just fixed on a axis, and so we can make a transform, make a switch between this world and local position for each specific object. And we have a landscape mode. We can create on our landscapes, but most of the time for the virtual studios we are not going to use the landscapes. But I just want to give you a quick overview for this tool. We can create on our landscapes, or we can import from the files like called height map files. Like maybe if you search on the web, you can find some terrain data or the height map of the cities, and you can import it into the Unreal Engine directly using this section. And I just want to leave the default location, rotation, and scale, and the polygon counts and the scale of the landscape. I will just leave it as default, and I will create it. So it's created a new landscape. It's just like a plane, but it has a really detailed polygon calculation and the polygon count. So we can increase them or we can decrease the polygon count. We created the terrain at manage mode, so we can select the points, or we can add external points. We can extend the terrain, or we can remove the parts in here, and we can use the sculpt tools, sub tools to make a sculpt like here. We can adjust our brush sizes and the tool strength in here. So you will see the change on terrain like this, and we can go over with another tool called smooth. So it just makes a transition. It just tries to blend with the layers in here. And we have a flatten tool. So when I started to paint, it gets my reference point as the place that I clicked. I clicked and I just moved. So it goes on the same height with the flatten tool, or we can add ramps like here. Just double click to place to another place to that we need to add ramp, and when I click add ramp, as you can see, it just blended the terrain in here. Or we can add some noises, but we need to tweak some noise settings, I think. As you can see, it's a little bit too much, but I just decrease the tool strength. As you can see, there's a noise. So we are totally free to adjust these parameters to create the effects that we want on the landscape. And we are able to paint these landscapes for different textures, different layers. But it requires another step for the materials. So tomorrow I will talk about the advanced materials, so we can talk about it to create some different textures on the landscapes. Basically, it requires a special material to paint it. And we have a mesh paint. We can use this mesh paint. Also, the mesh's material needs to be adjusted for the vertex color, and mainly we can paint these models with vertices. So a high poly model can be painted more detailed, but we need to avoid to use high poly models. So we can bake the textures directly to the 3D models. It will be much more wiser to bake it. And we have a modeling toolkit which I haven't experienced it too much. It can provide you some basics, but we are not using it for the modeling because yes, it's a good tool, but I think it's still in early stages. So having the knowledge of 3ds Max or the Maya will be, or the Blender will be easier to use it instead of this one. And we have a fracture which can be used for the physics tools. So we can break the models into the sub polygons. And we have an animation mode. It's working with the new tools for Unreal Engine like MetaHuman. It's totally shares some animation between the skeletal meshes that has some bones in it to animate it correctly in the Unreal Engine. Directional light, point light, spotlight, rectangular light or skylight in here. Also we have some cinematic assets like we can add camera crane or rail, and we can attach our cameras to virtual cameras. And we can directly work with the sequencer tool of Unreal Engine's cinematic tool. We can create on our camera movements in here, but it won't be fits according to our needs because we need to override the camera with tracking devices. So we can add basic shapes like this or this one. We have another place that is called blueprints. Mainly I am using this button to open level blueprints. Each level has a different level blueprints. They are independent from the another levels. So each level each virtual studio you can customize on your own needings on the here with scripting it. And we have a sequencer tool. So basically we can create sequencer tool level sequences like this. So it just created a new file in my content browser. So we can I can open it. So this is the same menu as you seen earlier. And I am going to give the details for the sequencer tool tomorrow because we need to continue to UI. In here, as you can see, there is a play this level button. So when I pressed, it just creates another camera for me, and it creates on a certain location, which can be considered as 000 of the word. So I can add a player start in here. So I just moved the default, and as you can see, the play button directly created a new pawn, new character on this point. So when we started to a game, it will simulate it actually. When we press the play button, we will just disable the editor features, and you will see the scripted actors and the gaming view or the simulation of the virtual studios actually. And we can pause it, and we can detach the player camera. As you can see, this is our pawn, and we can return to the player. Also, we have some another features in here. For example, when we start to press this button, for example, it can start in this selected viewport, or we can say that plane editor pi the abbreviation for plane editor. So as you can see, it just created a new window, and standalone game. It will directly try to compile the project, and it will try to open it as an external exe file, and we can attach the computers to Unreal Engine on our network to launch on this computer when we give the permissions on it. And we can change the spawn player at the default player start or the current camera location in the viewport. And for the multiplayer usages, we have some number of players in here and .NET, like play as client or listen server or dedicated server, which is much more focused on the multiplayer development. And we have the platforms on the Windows or the Linux. When we install software development kits, we will be able to package this project as execute them in a package. So when we package a project, it just creates a new folder for us to run the game without the engine. And we can select the windows in here, and we can basically select package projects, and it will ask us the folder to package to where. And as you can see, there are some assets in here, actors in here, and there's another tab called outliner. So for each level we will have some different outliner because it's totally for the it exposes all the actors to the outliner. So it's for the filtering, searching, and we can track the scene status at here. And we can select them in order to see the details of each selected actor's details. Like, for example, I just selected cube and I just pressed F to focus. And as you can see, selected actor has some parameters in here, like which object, or is it static, is it movable, or the materials. For example, I can change the material like this or this. And simulate physics, it will start to simulate physics when we press the play button if we want to see the physics, but don't trust the physics too much on the Unreal Engine. It can create a mess. And there's a collision. Collision is much more stands for the, or can I say, let's say you are a player and you can't just walk through the door. So there has to be a block. So collisions is for it. It just creates a block volume, and we can change the collisions according to the mesh needs. And it can be a very complex object, and we might need that detailed collision. So we can remove it, and we can just import another collision or use pre-existing collisions that can be calculated on the surface for the 3D model. And we have some lighting options in here, like get the is this object able to create shadows in here, cast shadows. And there are some additional tools like lighting channels. I just want to mention that. For example, let's start to add a point light, and as you can see, the lights casts a light to the surface. So I will just try to increase the brightness of the point light, and as you can see, surface gets the light. But I selected the cube right now, and I will just try to open the lighting channels on the rendering session, rendering lighting tab, and I will just disable the channel 0. So we couldn't get any light, and I will just enable for the 1. So I will just add another light called spotlight, and let me close the grid. And as you can see, there is no any light because we didn't choose any proper lighting channel for it. And as you can see, there's a lighting. Also, you can search it on here. And I will just enable it for the 1 and the 0. So this spotlight affects this mesh and the other meshes that uses the channel 0. And you just need to increase it more, as you can see. That can be opened in the settings. And I just want to point this Maps and Mods tab. So it defaults comes with open world selected, but we can override it. When we opened our project in Unreal Engine, its editor startup maps sets the default level of the editor project, and also we have a game default map, which stands for the when we packaged our project, we can, for example, select our main menu. So it will be a default map when we package the game, or when we package for the virtual studios. We can select the virtual studio levels in here. Also, we have some rendering tab in here. Find it. So we can change our anti-aliasing methods here, and there's a feature called virtual textures in Unreal Engine. It basically creates an atlas texture for all the textures to maintain a optimization. We can change the reflection methods, like which is using Lumen right now as default, or the GI. We can disable it if you don't need it. And we have shadow map methods, which works with virtual textures, virtual shadow maps, and the ray tracing that we talked about before can be enabled in here. And if you remember that I mentioned about the nanites for high polygon support, we can enable or disable it in here. And we have anti-aliasing methods in here. So when we created or in our scene, you will see some weird behaviors on the thin pixels. So when you face a scenario like this, you can switch over the anti-aliasing methods and find what best suits for you. And there are also some command lines to bypass the default parameters of anti-aliasing. So we can directly switch this, we can directly enter this console commands at here, or output log. As you can see, there are lots of errors in here. So its output log is real-time logger actually. It tells you what's happening right now with the engine right now. At the background. For example, I don't have any internet connection right now, but it tries to send a request to Epic Games to session ID, for example. And for example, shader job, it's about calculations for the materials. It will give you some insights of what's happening on the background of the Unreal Engine. And we have a content browser, so all of the assets, all of the 3D models needs to be imported in here. And we needed a material, we need to create it on our content browser. And for the content browser, I just want to talk about the hierarchy. As you can see, there is a Epic Games' page for the recommended asset naming conventions, like suffixes for example, Epic Games is suggesting that if you are going to create a material, just use a prefix which starts with M, and if it's material instances, use it with MI, and physics, etc. Static meshes use for SM, skeletal meshes use SK, and that goes like this. And just try to create a good structure, folder structure in here, because in the future it can create a really mess in in the project. So when working with a team member, so yeah, it can be really hard to find the objects that you needed. So that's pretty much for the actually editor overview. I just want to check the other part. Okay, so we can talk about the materials right now. For example, I just want to create a new folder in here to create materials folder, and I will just press the material in here, and I will just use as material, for example. And as you can see, I just created it and double click or enter to open this material, open base material, as you can see in here, and default it's a black material. So we can change the base color in here, for example. So we will have a red material. So by the way, if you are in assets right now, for example, in a situation like this, you can just use Control B to find this asset in the content browser. So, for example, I am in the material and I just press Control B to see where it's located. And I will just simply make a drag and drop operation to assign a material in here. And as you can see, the cube that we have added in here, we overrided the material with a basic operation, or we can directly use it, or for example, let me change it, and in the content browser I just clicked on the material, and there is a button on this side or for the static mesh. It use the selected asset from the content browser will really works. So the let's selected asset will be responsible for here to change it. And so its materials uses a node-based system, and we can basically create masks, and from the masks we can create some effects on the certain masks. Like, for example, let's say we created a glass and we just want to see the frames, but not as a polygon. So we can create an opacity mask for it, and we can just add some grid textures on it. So it will be a glass with masked frames, for example. I will just, I am not going to really give the details on it today because it's a little bit complex. But let me show you how to basically add the parameters and how to connect it to the inputs of the base material. For example, I am going to use a vector parameter in here, or I can directly press 1 left click, 2 left click, 3 left click, or 4 left click. So they will create some constant for me, and we can change this constants to the parameters, and we can give some names. As you can see here, it asks a name, parameter name. For example, I can say it's color, and I will just drag this to the base color, and the base color is fed from this node right now. And if I change this to a blue color, for example, as you can see, the directly change it. For example, base color uses it can use 100 or vector 3, which stands for RGB, for example. But if we add some constant, like let's think about it, it's only red, but it will be just for it only has a one channel, so it will give us black or white. So I just give a base color as 0, so it's black and I just want to provide one to white color, or we can use it as RGB. And also we can create new constants. You can directly write your own node names in here also, called material functions. So you can create your own specialized functions in here, and you can search it on the context of content browser, and we will basically place it into the roughness. As you can see, there is a reflection on the surface, and if we increase it, for example, like this, and this, so there is no any reflection, so 0 will be the fully reflective surface for us. And there is a metallic, so if we provide 1 to our metallic, it will just create a metallic view for us. And there is also textures that we need to talk about. I just pressed the settings in here, and I just select show engine content in here. So when we selected show engine content option in here, we will see that there is an engine content appeared in our content browser. So it's for the assets for Unreal Engine itself actually. So we can see what Epic provided for us externally. So I just want to reset these filters, and also there's a button for the filtering menu. So we can customize our filters like here. For example, I just want to see static meshes, materials, and blueprint classes, for example. So I can easily switch the filters to only see the static meshes or see the materials. Also, I can type the asset name to filter it more. And in our station, I am going to talk about the textures. They are just basically 2D images. And for example, there's a thing called normal map. It's for the it's a texture, but when we combine it with lighting, we will see the surface details on the material. For example, let's plug it into the normal map, and as you can see, it just created a depth in the surface according to the normal map. So for example, there are also additional other normal maps, and we didn't use any polygon in here. And as you can see, when we applied it, you can see the surface details with normal maps. For example, let's change the roughness value to see it much more detailed, like this. And I think it will be enough for the materials introduction for now. Let's go with the basics of lighting and post effects. So I just want to create a new level, new empty level in here. And I will add some shape like plane. I will modify the transform of the mesh in here also. We don't need to always use the pivot, so we can modify the this section, and I will just increase the scale of this mesh, and I will press G for the simulating game mode. So there is no any light on the outliner or in our scene right now. We can add some light in here. We will be using directional light for the simulating the sunlight, for example. and I will save it as map 2.0, and we can add some fog, we can add sky, we can add sky atmosphere like this, and clouds, and the exponential height fog. So we have the sunlight. As you can see, I will just disable the rotation grid to create a seamless transition that you can see easily. And I will add some additional lights. My suggestion is avoid to use point lights. Yes, probably there will be some situations that you need to use point lights, but as you can see, it's a light that casts all the lighting in every angle. It creates really too much shadows. So each shadows and each lighting will be calculated as the on the hardware at graphical card. So it will create a bad effect for us to maintain the optimization. For example, Control, Shift and H keys for me to see the current frame per second. Probably many of you know this FPS. Yes, gaming. Yes. Yes, we need a higher FPS, and if our FPS starts to decrease, we will see some hitches on the screen, which is not very good, because we need to maintain some optimization in order to create some smoother camera movements, and with tracking and the real camera and the virtual camera. So the hitch will be very problem for us. So we need to maintain the optimization. So each added asset will be an external calculation for the graphic card. So we need to maintain the optimization, and we need to avoid to use point light, for example. And I think it's not physically that correct, that point light. Instead we can use spotlight, and we can modify the radius of the spotlight, and we can increase the intensity of this spotlight in here, and we can also change the frustum of it, and we can give a source. So it will be for creating a light source of it. So let's
Can you change the temperature of light?
Yes. For example, there's a use temperature checkbox for warmer lights and cooler lights, and there is a effects word to disable the lighting, or we can hide it, but it will be only for editor. So I think it will be enabled for the game mode. So if we want to disable it, we need to use effects word to disable it, because when I press play button or simulate it as a game mode, it won't be visible for us. So also we can turn on and turn off the shadows of the mesh, for example like this and this. So light's still there, but there's no any casting shadow. And as you can see, when we
natural and
yes, instead of the point light. By the way, we can see the shadows changing in here when we
opacity and
actually when we made a bigger light source, it just creates a very smooth shadowing. So source radius is responsible for it. Also we have indirect lighting, which is bounce calculation, for example. Right now we increased too much, for example, but it came with the lumen technology, which is great, especially when we needed to much more natural lighting.
Yeah.
We can increase the indirect lighting of the light source, so it will just create much more bounce in the exterior, interior areas, or we can directly increase the indirect lighting of sun to affect into the interiors. And we have a volumetric lighting. For example, I just increase like crazies, but there's nothing happens because we haven't enabled the volumetric fog on the exponential height fog. We want to see the light fog, gut rays, for example. We need to enable the volumetric fog feature on the exponential height fog in here, as you can see. So I just enabled, and as you can see, there is a lighting rays on it, and I just decrease it. Lower values, as you can see. And if you want to go deeper, I think we can enable the cast volumetric shadow to, for example, create this effect, because it replicates like a shadow, and it's much more
It's more natural.
yes, natural.
Like in forest or something foggy, and the
Yeah.
light's coming to the trees, something like that.
Yes, yes, it will be very handy in a situation like this. And also we have a actor hidden in game. For example, there are some situations like you don't want to see it in the game, like a plane, a 3D object that creates some lighting effect volume, and we can disable it, or we were using it on Unreal Engine 4 actually, because we were baking the lights. There was no any dynamic lighting, so we were baking the lights with it, and we were enabling this parameter. So, for example, probably, as you can see, we just selected actor hidden in game in this light, and there is a light, and I just disable it. So actor is hidden right now, so spotlight is hidden.
That's direction, but you can move around the direction
Yes.
of the light, so you can see.
And also we have a performance.
Point of view after.
For example, we can draw some distances. For example, we have a distance. So if we are very far away from the lighting source, and if we don't need to see it, we can just adjust this parameter, the maximum draw distance, to adjust the distance to see the lighting, for example, as you can see, and we can increase the distance, and after a distance it will be gone away. And I think we can add some fading in here, so when we close the lighting, it will start to show the lighting with fading effects. And we have some lighting functions. It's totally different than the materials, because it has a different material domain for light function. Like, for example, you don't want to, you can't get a shadow as you wanted, so maybe you can create a mask as 2D, and you can print it on the lighting with light function materials. So we will go over it tomorrow. And there is also light profiles. We can select the IS lights, for example, like this and like this. For example, they are using it for flashlights, and we can just play with the intensity of the IS, like here. and distance field shadows, which is totally different calculation for the shadows, and ray tracing, sample per pixels for the ray tracing, which is used for the hardware ray tracing right now. So we added the spotlight. We have rectangular lights in here, like the studio lights. Example, we can increase the source width like this and this, and we can increase the intensity of rectangular light. For example, I will just remove it, and as you can see, here is the rectangular light, how it affects it. And we can set the temperature of each light, like here. Maybe we can remove the, if we remove the sunlight.
Sunlight is better to see.
Yes, as you can see, and there's an attention radius for the global radius for it, and we can increase it. So when we have to maintain the performance again and again, and when we increase the radius, it will cast more light and it will create much more shadows for each object. So we just need to make it smaller. It will be much better for us. And there is also source texture, which is I used for like projections. For example, I am using it for this purpose, or we can create some masks on it, but in general I am using the material functions because it comes with the materials, and we can customize the materials much more detailed. And the same parameters goes for it, like just like I showed you on the spot or the directional lights. It has lighting channels, so we can add another model on the lighting channel 1, and we can cast it on the only for lighting channel 1, and we can enable or disable the volumetric shadows in here. Also, we have a shadow bias, which is a very handy tool to create a good shadow. We can tweak this shadow bias setting in here. And we have a specular scale, which is, let me show you in another way, because, for example, this material has some specular view. And when I disable the light is specular, it won't be affecting on the surface's reflectivity. Yeah. So specular is. Yes, actually, I think specular stands for the receiving the light. Yes. Okay. So we can disable the on the light side. Also, we can override the specular value for each specific materials. So we have a very customizable solutions at here. And I think we are, we also have a skylight. Let me add another direction light and remove it. So skylight, actually, when you enable the real-time capture, it will just try to gather all the environment's lighting, and it will try to use it as real-time. But if you disable it, and we can select HDRI cube maps in here, which is provided by the Epic Games right now. And it's not an interior scene, so we are not seeing the effects of the HDR, but I think we can increase it, and we can see the, for example, like this. As you can see, we just select a cube map like this, or sunset cube map. As you can see, it will just try to provide this lighting environment into the scene with using cube maps. and we can override the lighting. We can enable or disable the indirect lighting intensity for the photon calculations for the lumen. And we also have a lower hemisphere colors in here, so we can just give some color on the lower of the hemisphere of the sky like this, or we can change the lower hemisphere of the scene like in the skylight like this. And I think we are okay right now. For the distance field we are not using it because it's much more for the exterior shots and for the shots that has some trees, near trees, so it will try to gather some the near objects shadow into the leaves, and it will just create a good shadowing area for the intersections of the mesh. So we can remove our skylighting, and I will just check it. We also have some volumes, like the most important one is post-process volume. As you can see, it's a box, and close it. So we have some, we have lots of actually parameters on here, like on the lens, color grading, film, GI, reflections, rendering features. Let's start with the lens. For example, we can add some bloom effects in here, but for example, I just increased it, but there is no any effect for the volume. I just need to enter the volume, and as you can see, so when I leave it from the volume, it's just the default settings, and when I entered it, the
It will brighter appears. Yeah.
yes, actually it overrides the post effects in this volume, and we can make it for a global. When we selected infinite extent unbound parameter, so we will see always the effects in here, so we don't need to go enter the volume, and we can directly override the values like here, and we have some exposure settings and eye adaptation in here. For example, for the virtual scenes, we are disabling the auto exposure and exposure settings. We are just fixing on a value, because when we move the camera in a much more darker area, we are avoiding to play with the exposure. We just want to have that fixed level. And we have a chromatic aberration effect like here, as you can see. So we can disable it for now. We can have some dirt mask textures. It will just create some lens effects, for example. Let me show you. There's a texture called screen dirt on the Unreal Engine's content. It's provided by default. So I will just select it, and I will just edit. So as you can see, there is a effect. Maybe, yeah. For example, when we see it, when we looked at, there is a dot. So we can overwrite this texture as we want, and we can, I think we can change the color as well. And we have a shutter speed and etc. And pigment like this, or we can select it up to maximum one, but we can increase it more with keyboard like this, this, this. And we have a depth of field, which is works with pretty well with the cine camera actor. And I think we have to override it on the cinema camera actors, because each depth of field should be applied on the specific cameras. So having depth of field on the global as with using post-process will be can be problem. So we can apply it for the specific cameras. And also there's a temperature setting for the post-process volume, as you can see. And as you can see, we can change it, and we can also play with the tints. We have contrast for the global saturation settings, for example. Or we can increase the contrast for global, or only for the shadows, for example. We can add saturation effects for the shadows, or we can add some contrasts on the shadow pass. And we have a toe and slope settings in here. By the way, I just want to disable them because already tweaked it too much. As you can see, there is a slope and toe settings. And we can change the GI calculation in here. For example, there is no GI. There is no any calculated photon light in here. But with Lumen, we are able to see this photon calculations.
Of the metallic of the cube, yeah? Like
Actually, can you tell me again?
It's making like the real reflection of the blue panel on the
Yeah,
ground.
yeah, it's
You
reflecting
can see
the.
it in real time,
Yeah.
but it's not really there.
It's also
Yes.
affecting the shadow.
Yeah, affecting the shadow is blue around.
And we can tweak the lumen settings like here. We can increase the quality, but sometimes it will be
More memory.
leaving it default
We're not
will
going
be.
over
Yeah.
it's okay.
If we are having a problem on the lumen, for example, or the calculation of the photons, we can just go the process settings, post-process effect volume, and we can tweak the lumen settings at here, for example. And we also have a reflection method called lumen. In the previously in Unreal Engine 3 or Unreal Engine 4, we were using screen space. Right now, we are not able to see any reflections in here. Let me create a basic material for it. I will just provide 0 and 1 for the base color to see the reflective surface, and I will just edit. As you can see, there is a reflection in here, but when we switch it to screen space, we are no longer able to see the correct reflection, because screen space is calculated much more on the viewport what we are seeing, but Lumen is not working in this direction. So let's say we are able to see a little bit more. So as you can see, it's rendered to the here, so we can see the reflections in here. But so as you can see on the bottom of the screen, we have some rendered plane. And as you can see the reflection after the starting of the shadow, it's only rendered on this section. So you can see the change. So using Lumen will be much more
Yeah, from other angles.
quality. Yeah. Also, we have some post-process materials. We can create some post effects, or for example, like pulse effects that can be used in mainly in motion design, for example. We can override some scenes calculation of the paths. We can override them with the post-process materials. And we have some ray tracing, ambient occlusion effects in here. We can tweak them, and grain, for example, we can add it much more grain, or we can leave it closed. Yes, that's pretty much for the post-process volume. So let me check, is there any topic that I haven't mentioned, talked? So, we can work on the sky atmosphere. For example, we can tweak the some sky settings in sky atmosphere, and for the clouds we can tweak in here, like altitudes, and we can override the material of the clouds in here. But my computer is dying right now. For example, it's a material for the clouds. So, for example, let's say we just want to make some adjustments for the speed of clouds. We need to open it, and we need to add some additional nodes at here to customize it. But it has a simple logic actually. So tomorrow we will talk about it, and you will see it will be easy for all of you.